Okay, so we are talking about ArcGIS, and I'm trying to get to, here it is. This is basically the instructions. You need to find a shapefile of the North Carolina county boundaries. So you're going to have to Google for this and add it to an ArcGIS data frame. So let's get into ArcMap, and you get to that through your your Windows button. Here at school, it's the little globe with a magnifying glass. So go ahead and open that up. Here, let me try this again. So in ArcMap, we're in ArcGIS 10.6 for desktop. It's going to start with a blank map. Just click OK. Save, and you're going to find where you want to save it. Then you're going to go to File, Map Document Properties. This is so important. Click the Store Relative Path Names to Data Sources checkbox. You definitely want to do that because that way you won't get broken links when you reopen something that you had saved on your flash drive. And that's a good idea in CAD as well, so that your image doesn't, if you have an ortho image or something in the background, that it doesn't go away. And so you save. Now, every time you hit this little button or Control S, you will be saving. So this thing that says layers is actually a data frame that contains layers. How you add data, there's a bunch of different ways. In the video that I linked to in Blackboard, you go to this Add Data drop-down box. You can add data, add a base map, which is essentially a map that is kind of in the background. Or you can add data that someone else made that is online. I like to use the catalog. When you save to the folder that you're going to be working out of, it becomes your home folder. You want to make sure that your data is in the same folder as or a subfolder of the folder that your MXD file is in. Otherwise, you have to make what's called a folder connection. That's very annoying. So we have to find a shapefile of the North Carolina county boundaries. All right. Let's Google shapefile North Carolina counties. Oh, North Carolina county shapefile. Somebody had already searched for it. Here's GIS, this county boundaries from the Library of NC State. Couple of places. It's at census.gov. It's at NC One Map. So we're going to basically, here's Tiger, which is from the census. I'm just going to use the one from NCDOT, but in case it's not what I need, I'm going to open it in a new tab. So this is an announcement. And down below, boundary data, county boundary shoreline, polygon layer representing county boundaries for use in depicting the boundaries with a shoreline. That's what we want. If I click on it, I'm looking down in the bottom left in my status bar, and it tells me that this is a zip file. This is not a link to a web page. So I'm just going to go ahead, now that I know it's my data file, right click it, save link as, and put that in the file folder that I am using. Now I can't just click on it because it's a zip file. I'm going to use this little up arrow and show in folder. Right click, extract all, and it says, okay, I'm going to make a folder that is listed exactly the same name. Shapefiles and geodatabases are notoriously large. Spatial data is a very large file. So you can see this is 9 items and it's cranking away. We have now 2 versions of our county boundary shoreline. One is the zip file, it's compressed, and one is an actual file folder that contains another file folder that contains all of the information that we need. The 2 most important things, we need them all, but the 2 most important things are the shape source, SHP file extension, and .prj. So we know that it's there. We'll go back to ArcMap. And if we look at this, well, where's our data? You have to right click on your home folder and refresh it. And there's our data. Now, we had 9 files in the file folder. We need them all, but it's only showing the shapefile. That's okay. So there are a bunch of ways to get data into your map, into your data frame. You can either add data and go navigate for it, but it's right there. So you can either click and hold it and drag it over to your data frame and see the little pluses, or you can drag it right into your map area. I like to do that because it's a shorter distance and I'm lazy/efficient. So here we are. So now let's take a look at the rest of our instructions. So we have added it to the GIS data frame. So now that we've added that Excel file, I'm going to refresh again, and there it is. And if you expand it, you can see I had 3 sheets in that workbook, and obviously 2 of them are garbage. So I'm going to, the next step says display the XY data of the spreadsheet of the North Carolina county seats provided by your instructor, name of the county, the latitude and longitude of the city. So that is what we need. Here's the county seats lat long, cities in NC. So make sure that you're clicking on the sheet, not the workbook. If you try to add the workbook, it will get very confused and might throw a fit and hide in a corner. And I'm going to drag that over, but I don't want to drag it under the polylines. I want to put that on top of the polylines. Nothing appears in your map because it's just an Excel file, basically. It's just a table. You need to right click on the cities in NC. And you can do lots of cool stuff with it. If this had addresses, you could put them on the map. What we're going to do is display XY data. Notice you're in table of contents. If you hover over it, you're listing by source. If we were listing by drawing order, like in CAD, or Photoshop, you can stack layers, it would not show up. That's because it is not a spatial layer yet. It's just an Excel spreadsheet. So we go back to list by source, right click cities in NC and do display XY data. So this is the table that we're using. We've got to figure out which columns are X and Y. Is this correct that the X-axis going side to side is longitude, and the Y-axis going up and down is latitude? Is that correct? That is how it is on a globe. We have no elevation. It's the opposite of CAD. If you scroll away from yourself, you get farther away from the map. It is weird. We need it to not be in a projected coordinate system. When we go to display XY data, we have to notice this is in a projected coordinate system. It is latitude, longitude, right? Latitude and longitude is geographic. So we have to go up to geographic coordinate systems, to do world, and then click OK. So now longitude is the X field, latitude is the Y field, there's no elevation, and we are not in a projected coordinate system. So this says the table does not have an object ID field, which is a lie because it does, but it just means you will not be able to do anything with this. It'll just show it. You won't be able to query it or whatever. You can export it later to a shapefile, but for now, we'll have restricted functionality. That is just fine. Click OK. Yay! So now we can see cities and NC events, and there it is. The cool thing is that you can be creative. So if you double click on the little dot, actually you don't have to double click. If you just single click, that was yelling at me, you can look for a special picture. So here's a city hall, cranes, here's a little city. Let's use this one. So let's make it a smaller size. Still too big? I know, I'm sorry. All right. So we have displayed the XY data of the spreadsheet. So now we have to create a good map layout with the 10 basic map elements. One of the basic map elements, if you look down here, there are two little buttons. If you hover, one says Data View, which is where we are now, and the other says Layout View. Layout View is where you make a map. So we need to have the 10 basic elements of a map. Now, first, take a look at this. Does the shape of North Carolina match the shape of our paper? No. So let's go to File, Page and Print Setup, change it to Landscape, and click OK. This blue dashed line, this is our data frame. So we're going to use these grips, and we're going to make it fit inside our paper. This is great. Now we have this additional layout. Notice they're the same as all of these, but they have a little piece of paper. And so that indicates that whatever we click here is going to be happening in basically paper space. They call it page space. What we need to do is get out of graphic mode, which allows us to move the data frame itself, and we need to get into focus mode, which allows us to actually zoom into our map. So we have to get into focus mode by double clicking the data frame. And now you can see it has a hatched border that tells us that it is now essentially a viewport. It is looking into map space, our data view. Let us zoom in with this and make a little window. There we go. I'm going to do it again because I want to, this data frame is not going to have a border. And so we can get as close as we can to the edge of our data. And then I've got to use the select arrow. I've got to select that again so that I'm getting out of the zoom command. And I'm going to double click outside. Now you'll notice there is a border. We have to get rid of that. Right click on the data frame. Go to Properties. Click on the Frame tab. Click on the border drop-down box and scroll all the way up and click None and then OK. This differs. Yes, we're going to use that coordinate system. All right. So now when you deselect the data frame, it disappears. And that's fine because we know where it is. You just, if you need to get into the data frame again, you double click on the map. All right. So the data frame is one of our 10 necessary elements. Another necessary element is what we're going to add right now, and that's called a neat line. The purpose of the neat line is the same in ArcGIS and ArcMap as it is in AutoCAD or any kind of plat or design or map or anything. You must have a neat line to indicate that that is the full extent of your project. That is for the purposes of if it gets printed or copied, that your reader knows that is all the data there is. So we can go right up here to the Insert menu tab, click it, and we're going to add neat line. And that brings up a little dialog box. And it defaults to place around all of the elements. We don't want that. We want to place inside the margins. We do want a border. I'm going to make it a 2-point and then click OK. We do not want rounding. Sometimes you do, but this time we don't. So that takes up the whole page. Usually you would make sure that that is a good 1/2 inch from your margins. What else needs to go in a map? What are some of those 10 basic things? A legend. So we're going to click on our data frame once. That activates it so that when you insert a legend, it knows I'm going to insert a legend about that data frame. Otherwise, it would just be blank. So then click legend. Do we need to tell that the lines that we see are the counties, or can we just assume that? We do not need to put that in our legend. So under legend items, click on county boundary shoreline and use the left arrow to get rid of that. Now we click next. You can call it legend. You can call it key, whatever you would like. You can center it. That is your creativity. Click next. If you want a border around your legend, you would add it here. I do not want a border. However, I do want a background. And that is my choice. That is a creative choice. You do not need one. I just happen to like it. And I'm going to round the edges of that legend just because I can. And because I'm rounding it, I'm going to increase the gap. And I'm going to just click through. It's building the legend. And there it is. And I'm just going to put that somewhere. What else needs to go on a map? There are three things actually that were mentioned on the video that I showed you that we don't have yet. Scale. Again, if we were selected, what's active is the legend. If we did a scale bar, it would find the scale of the legend. We don't want that. We want a scale of North Carolina. So now we're going to activate the data frame by clicking it once. Insert scale bar. There are plenty to choose from. Pick one that you like. Make sure that it is not metric. And then you grab it. You can put it in a corner. I prefer to put it a little closer to my map. I'm going to click on North Carolina. I'm also going to insert scale text. And I'm going inches to feet. And I don't like that it's going inch to feet, so I'm going to right click it and go to properties. And I'm going to change my map units to miles. And there. So 1 inch is actually 57 miles, which is weird. But I would have to change something else to fix that. So I have my scale. What else do I need? North arrow. Remember, we want a north arrow for the data frame. Insert north arrow. These are what's called dynamic features. That means that they know where north is on your data frame. There are plenty to choose from. Go ahead and pick one that you like. I'm using one I've never used before. And you can make that a little bigger if you'd like. We need a title. Notice anytime we've added something that was text, it showed up in the middle. So insert title. This is a dynamic title, but it becomes a graphic object that is uneditable. So make sure that your title is descriptive, but not conclusive. What that means is that your title needs to just describe what it is, where it is, and when it is. So these are county seats, North Carolina, and the county seats have not changed ever, so we can use the current year. Now I've used commas. That doesn't look good. So I'm going to take the commas away and I'm going to add county seats in North Carolina, comma 2018. Okay. And it just sticks it way up at the top of the paper. Well, I don't want it to be there. So I'm going to drag it down. And maybe I want it to be bigger and bolder. If I right click and go to properties, that tells me that it is uneditable. See, it's just a text, a dynamic link. And if I go to change symbol, I can change the font. I can change the font size, the style, and click OK. You might think, well, why couldn't you just change it in these little, no, this is just a query. This is not something that you can change. And there it is. So that's much better. I like that. All right, what else do we need? A description is not something that is mandatory, but you certainly could add text. What was your idea? The data source. We need to know where this came from. So we're going to insert text. And it shows up in the middle. So you just backspace out of text and it becomes a little text box. And you're going to say data source colon NC DOT. So this was the county boundaries. And where did we get the county seats? So county seats, lat long, instructor, Googled. And then you need to click out of that text box and then grab it and put it in a corner. Along with the data source, you also need to insert text that says map projection of those county boundaries, North Carolina State Plane Coordinate System. And go ahead and put that down with the data source. So that is all considered the source. What else do we need? Oh yeah, I got to find out who made this. Insert another text box. Yes, you have to have your name and the date that you made it. Cartographer. And what date map created on 12/3/2018. I just double clicked on my text and then I could go and add additional lines. That is called your byline. That's a journalism term. It just means who wrote it or who created it. Well, we're the cartographer. You don't have to write the word cartographer. You could write BY. If you are writing BY, please do not capitalize the word by. Prepositions are never capitalized unless they start the sentence. That's the only time. But this isn't a sentence. This is a label, so you don't capitalize the word by. think that's it. The scale has the graphical scale bar and the scale equivalency. We have a north arrow. We have a legend. We have a data frame. We have the date of the creation. We have our data source. We have the cartographer's byline. We have a descriptive but not conclusive title. And we have a neat line. So we've got everything we need. The only trouble is, look at legend. It has that awful thing, cities in NC $ events. How are we going to change that? The legend was automatically created. Well, what we can do is change where it gets its information. It gets its information from the table of contents. So what you want to do is slow click twice on the cities in NCS so that you can rename it. We're not renaming our data file. We're just renaming this layer so that it shows up nicely in the legend. What are these cities? County seats. And voila, because the legend is dynamic, it has changed our legend. So now it says export it to a PDF that has 600 DPI resolution. So in order to do that, first of all, let's save. Haven't saved in a while, and ArcMap does not, unfortunately, have an autosave function like Word or AutoCAD or things like that. So now we do File, Export Map, and it puts us in this weird default folder. So you want to go find your folder so you don't have to hunt. And it says your same file name and it defaults to EMF. Well, we want PDF. So save as type, PDF. So now we're in the general tab. The resolution is 300. That is the minimum that you can have. We want to select that and put 600. And then go ahead and save. And it's working. And working. And it's done. The export is complete. We don't see it. If you want to see it, you have to go to your folder and you have to open it up. Beautiful.